So I have some good news for you guys. Everyone is lowering GPU prices. Feels like every day now is GPU Christmas, right? Well, before we celebrate, we still have a long way to go. And when I say everyone, I don't just mean Nvidia in the US, like at Micro Center or something like that. I mean AMD as well. They're dropping their prices on sites like Newegg, Amazon. I'm going to show you these examples like the 7900 XT. This is the cheapest that it's been. I'm not saying it's a good buy or that's the price it should be, but it's a lot lower. Remember, this was $899 and now it's down to $762 to $787. So that's a huge difference. And then when I say everyone, I didn't mean just in the United States. I mean worldwide. I know all you guys watch me in different places in the world. We're talking about in the UK, prices are also going down. I'm going to show you those examples. In the rest of Europe and Germany, prices are going down. Even in places like Australia, the prices started high. They're starting to go down a little bit. So overall, this is a global trend of prices going down. Sure, you may catch the best deals in the US. Like we pointed out, Micro Center was going to give you a $100 Steam gift card if you bought any RTX 40 series GPUs. Some people really don't want a gift card. They would rather see that discount. But listen, if you're going to buy a GPU anyway and you get a $100 gift card, that can go a long way into reducing that cost. You can sell the gift card off or maybe use it to buy games if you're going to use your GPU to play games, which you probably will do so. Take a look at some of these prices in more detail. The first one that I want to bring up is AMD. That's right, NVIDIA isn't the only one in the game, even though they have the most amount of market share. That's why we probably spend the most amount of time talking about them. A lot of people buy their GPUs. Listen, AMD, I'm going to be honest, they're not any better than NVIDIA when it comes to GPU pricing. In fact, they follow the lead of NVIDIA in a lot of cases, and if they get the chance to do so, they're going to charge you just as much as NVIDIA. The only reason they don't is because they can't. Their products in general aren't nearly on the same level. Take, for example, like the 4090 versus the 7900 XTX. You can see there's certainly a gap there that warrants a price difference for the NVIDIA GPU. So something weird that they did, they also follow some of NVIDIA's methodology in terms of pricing products and changing the name. Case in point, 4070 Ti was a 4080 12 gigabyte, right? You see that shift, how they canceled that GPU? Well, AMD did a similar thing, but they never canceled theirs. What am I talking about? Well, they released two GPUs, the 7900 XTX with that extra X at the end, which was generally well received at $999. It's a pretty good GPU. That's a decent bang for buck for that price class. And then they released an atrocity of a GPU at $899, the 7900 XT. Now, my theory is, and this is just my opinion, that GPU should have been a 7800 XT, probably at $649, like the last generation. Remember, last generation, we had a 6900 XT come out, $999. So far, that's fine, right? And then we had a 6800 XT at $649. Not only that, the 6800 XT performed fairly close to the 6900 XT. Obviously, they both have 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and the 6900 XT is faster, but it's really not that big of a difference. Now, the 7900 XTX has 24 gigabytes of VRAM at $999. Nice upgrade from last generation, right? It's also really fast, much faster than a 7900 XT, which only has 20 gigabytes of VRAM, but it's only priced $100 off. So you see what AMD did here? They brought an inferior GPU up the stack, just like NVIDIA was doing with the 4080 12 gigabyte, and they slapped a huge price on it. And you see by these price drops, that really hit them hard, and nobody wants to buy this GPU at that price. That's why we're seeing the 7900 XT now way under MSRP. We're not talking about a little bit of a difference. $899 to like $762, $787. That's more than a $100 difference. That's a pretty big jump for a new GPU. And this isn't a Steam gift card. We're talking about an actual discount where you're paying less for this GPU. Now, the 7900 XT is not a bad GPU by any means. It has 20 gigabytes of VRAM. That's pretty impressive. Even though it's not the fastest VRAM, it's definitely not bottlenecked like the 4070 Ti. It's in general pretty good VRAM with pretty good bandwidth. So the problem here is at $899, it presents a really terrible value. How about at the lowest price that we saw? Let's say $762, or when I actually pulled it up this morning, it was like $787, meaning that probably more people bought it and they upped the price a little bit. What does that mean? I still don't think it's a good buy. It's still way too expensive in this environment. Remember, that GPU should have been $649. That price was a very fair price for a 6800 XT when it came out. That's not something that people really argued over. That's a pretty good price. $649, 6800 XT, which often beat a 3080, meaning that it was $50 cheaper, and often, even today, it does really well because it's 16 gigabytes of VRAM. We can agree that's a pretty fair price. So now we take the 7900 XT, 20 more gigabytes of VRAM, and it's a fairly fast GPU, even though it isn't as fast as the 7900 XTX. I think we can justify a $50 increase from last generation because it has more VRAM and it is certainly faster than last generation. So I'd say $699 is fair for this GPU. So we're still really far away from that price, but it's getting closer. I think at $699, it would be a much more fair price, and that's like $200 less than its original MSRP. You'd be coming in cheaper than a 4070 Ti, and you would have better VRAM and overall better performance. Now, if this dropped to the original $649, that would be the price I think most people would want to see this at, but then that might be really unlikely because imagine the actual 7800 XT. That's the one that I think AMD probably wants to price at $649, and looking at how the 4070 did at $599, I don't think that's going to be a very smart move. If AMD wants the 7800 XT to do really well, it certainly has to beat a 4070, but it has to come in probably a lot cheaper and with more VRAM. I haven't thought about what the price should be yet of that GPU, but $649 seems like it's going to be way too much because we're looking at a potential 7900 XT at $649 to $699. That's really the price that the market is dictating for these GPUs. And like I mentioned before, these prices aren't only in the US. If I take a look, for example, scan.co.uk, which is a popular site in the UK for GPUs, these GPUs have also gone down in price. It's not always going to match the US. It's not always going to be, dollar for dollar or dollar for pound in this case, but you can see the prices have gone down. And even if we take a look at other sites like Mindfactory in Germany, some of the GPUs have gone down a lot as well. And remember, when we look at these prices, the euro to the dollar conversion is not exactly 1 for 1. Usually the euro is still going to signify that the dollar is a little bit more. Like if it's 999 euro, that's going to be a little bit over $1,000. But remember, the European prices, like in Germany, it has the VAT included. That's the value added tax. In this case, it's 19%. So you have to subtract 19% from that price. Let's say if you look at a GPU and it's $999, subtract 19%, and that's the price that you get. In some cases, it actually ends up being cheaper than the US MSRP with the tax included. So some of these European prices have certainly gone down a good amount. They're not nearly as bad as it was before. Sometimes in Europe, they have very, different pricing than in the US. They go a lot higher, but we can see the trend, not for all GPUs, but for some, is certainly going down a significant amount more. And of course, it's not only the AMD GPUs going down in price. We've talked at length about NVIDIA. Like in the US, the 4070 has that $100 gift card. Well, in the UK, the price is also getting very close to what the US MSRP would be. And even like in Mindfactory, some of these prices with the VAT included, if you subtract that, it's actually cheaper than some of the US MSRP pricing for the RTX 4070. So these prices are starting to get a lot more in line worldwide rather than just in the US. And that shows you that people really aren't buying these GPUs, and the prices continue to go down, but they're still way too elevated on both NVIDIA and AMD. AMD is going to follow the market and they're going to follow NVIDIA. If NVIDIA is pricing pricing expensive GPUs and getting away with it, you can bet AMD will follow through and do the same. But if nobody's selling, the market's going to force everybody to get cheaper. And by its very nature, AMD generally will be cheaper than NVIDIA just because the product stack is going to be a little bit different. All right, guys, let me know how GPUs look like in your country. What's still really expensive? And let me know which store you actually shop at, like Mind Factory, Scan.uk, maybe even Newegg if they ship to different parts of the world. I want to know where you find the best prices. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.